Another question here. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll send the microphone over to you.
What about when the mother's life is in danger?
If the woman's life is in danger and she's going to die because of some medical condition that has arisen in her pregnancy or while she's pregnant, the key principle to keep in mind is that we don't kill the child to save her, but we can address her medical condition. If she has an ectopic pregnancy, that fallopian tube that the baby is in is growing and expanding, and eventually the tube will burst. Jojo, there's a question in the blue shirt right there, just so you know. The tube will burst. The bursting tube brings about the death of the baby and can bring about the death of the mother. In that situation, while you don't go in and cut the baby up, you do remove the pathology within her, which is the section of the fallopian tube that, if left alone, will kill her. If we could then transfer the baby somewhere, we do. Currently, we can't. We don't have the technology. So the child dies as an effect of doing a good thing, which is removing a part of her she doesn't need for her survival, that if left alone will result in her demise. That's different from abortion in two ways: action and intention. The action of abortion, as we can see from these pictures, directly targets the baby's body for dismemberment, and the intention is to end the life of the child. Whereas with what I just described, the action targets the condition or pathology within the woman's body, namely in this case the fallopian tube, and the intention is to try to save both lives. You have another question? Go ahead.
What about rape?
Certainly, rape is an injustice. A couple of years ago, in the New York Times, an abortionist talked about an abortion she did on a rape victim. And in this article, the abortionist said that she was horrified when she aborted the pregnancy of a woman who had been raped, only to discover after examining the removed tissue, because they have to put the body parts back together and form the body of the baby to make sure they got everything out of the woman so she doesn't get an infection. And this abortionist said it was only until after the abortion, when she was putting the parts together, that she realized the baby in the pregnancy was further along than she thought. And that she didn't just abort an embryo that had been conceived in rape. She aborted the embryo that was conceived in an act of love between this woman and her husband. So they had sex a couple weeks before she was raped, and they had assumed this pregnancy was from the rape when in fact it was from an act of consensual sex. And even the abortionist was horrified. So we have to ask ourselves, if it's horrifying to kill a child conceived in love, is it not equally horrifying to kill a child conceived in violence? Because in both situations, we have a child, we have a human being. I think there's two questions that often get asked when the situation of rape arises. What's right and what's easy? And the answers aren't always the same. What's right in that situation, I would say, is to not end the life of an innocent human being. But what's easy? Well, carrying through with that pregnancy probably isn't going to be easy. And I'm not here today to encourage you to do what's easy. I'm here today to encourage you to do what's right, with the full knowledge that in life, often what's right isn't easy to do. And it's going to be really hard for that victim. Any other questions or comments? Yes, there's one in the green shirt behind you, Jojo.
So you're saying the rape victim should keep the baby?
I'm not saying she has to raise the child for 18 years, but because there is no way out of that situation except to directly and intentionally end the life of the child, I'm saying it's not ethical to kill someone because the father of that someone committed a crime. And after birth, certainly the child could be given up for adoption. Any other questions or comments or clarifications? Please raise your hand and my colleague will happily bring you the microphone. Yeah, there's one. Sorry, in the red and gray shirt here. Oh, okay. Any other questions or comments about the exhibit, about abortion?
Why would you not put all this money and energy and manpower to, I don't know, crisis pregnancy centers or to help women who are pregnant?
You know, that's a really good point, and I'd like to use your question as an opportunity to let passersby know that there is a table of literature over here with the white tablecloth on it, and it has information about pregnancy centers that help women who find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy. It's not going to be an easy situation, and if you've got a college student with big plans to finish school and get a career and she isn't married, that's a very tough situation, but there are centers set up right here in Pensacola to help a woman through that situation. So there are centers in existence, and we encourage the support of those centers with money and with time and with talent. But we're here and we're expending energy and resources into simply educating about abortion, because we've found that large numbers of women with unplanned pregnancies who are thinking of abortion don't even come to our help centers. They go directly to abortion clinics. So we have a lot of help centers already in existence, and they're not being used to their maximum capacities. So we need to put energy and money into education so people are turned off of abortion and therefore directed to the center, which already exists, to help them through their unplanned pregnancy. So any other questions or comments, please raise your hand. My colleague will bring the microphone to you.
Question. Okay, so let's say that abortion is made illegal. What about the threat of overpopulation?
Good question. You know, there's 42 million abortions every year throughout the world, and some people say, well, we're going to have 42 million births every year on top of the ones we already have. That's going to create overpopulation. Well, currently we don't have overpopulation. We have underpopulation. There are parts of China that are less densely populated than parts of the United States. Why do we think of China as overpopulated as opposed to the United States? Because we have a problem of bad government over there. We've got a problem of mismanagement of resources over there. You've got poverty, you've got a whole wealth of other issues. So it's not so much people as the circumstances under which those people live. So the solution is not to kill people, but to kill problems, to address the circumstances. I was born in Canada, and whenever people talk about overpopulation, I always say, well, go to Canada, because there's underpopulation there. They're not replacing at current population replacement levels. So there is a need to have more people, not less. And even if ultimately we got to a point where someone said there are now too many of us, the solution isn't to end someone's life. After all, if it is, why aren't some people volunteering for their lives to be taken for the cause? Not that I support that, but I'm just making the point. Don't go take someone else's life because you think there's too many of us. Any other questions or comments? Please raise your hand. We're happy to dialogue with you and hear what you think, hear what you have to say. Any questions about abortion or the comparison that we're making? Yes?
What about if a woman is not planning a pregnancy and she's a drug addict, she's a terrible mother, and abuse her child, and the child is going to live a life of misery?
You know, if a child's going to live a life of misery, we can look to the example of children who already live lives of misery and ask ourselves, what do we do in those situations? There are children who are born who are perhaps being abused and perhaps starving, and our solution is not to kill those children, but to get them out of the situation they're in, to try to improve their circumstances, not eliminate them from existing entirely. So you raise, again, another very difficult situation which comes up with an unplanned pregnancy, but I would say the solution is not to kill the child, because if we're concerned about abuse, isn't this abuse? Killing someone. And so the solution is not to end the child's life, but put the child into an adoptive home so that the child isn't raised in an environment where he or she is abused. I was in Romania a couple of years ago volunteering at a clinic for sick kids, and one of the little kids there had fetal alcohol syndrome, a very severe form of it. She was very underweight, she had a lot of physical and mental problems, but I can't imagine anyone going and killing her because she has fetal alcohol syndrome. Well, if we wouldn't kill her now at the age of 3 because she has FAS, we shouldn't kill someone before birth because they have FAS. So any other questions or comments, please raise your hand. We're happy to hear from you. Well, maybe I'll leave you with this one thought, and then we'll encourage you to talk to the people next to you. A couple of years ago, I was standing next to a sign similar to this, except instead of this comparison, it was the Rwandan genocide next to abortion. And a woman who survived the Rwandan genocide happened to walk past and began talking to me and told me that most of her relatives had been killed in Rwanda. She had escaped the country prior to the genocide starting. And as I was standing next to this image, I became very self-conscious, and I asked her how she felt about us comparing the Rwandan genocide to abortion. What did she think of the images? And she looked in silence at the two images, the abortion photo and the child killed in Rwanda. She looked in silence at the two photos side by side. And after a while, she pointed to the picture of the aborted baby. And she said, "That's worse, because at least my family could try to run away." This woman who lost most of her relatives to an unimaginable injustice like the Rwandan genocide said abortion is worse because her family could try to run away and the preborn child could not. And I think that should compel all of us to pause and think about the innocence and the vulnerability of the preborn child. And their dependency on the mother's body does not take away our responsibility for the child. It heightens our responsibility. The more vulnerable someone is, the more we need to care for them. Finally, some people may say, but what if I've already done that? What if someone has already had an abortion? We're not here today to condemn women. We're here to condemn an action, the action of abortion. Some people know what they're doing and a lot of people don't. They may go into abortion with no knowledge of what the baby looks like and what abortion looks like. And our organization encourages anyone who has regrets about their abortion to approach us and perhaps contact the phone numbers on the posters that are surrounding the exhibit with a help number. If you don't want to talk to us, there are centers set up with counselors who exist to answer that phone and help women who have had an abortion and regret it. So that if you regret your abortion, there is hope and there is healing and there's reconciliation. And even a country like the one I just mentioned, where the Rwandan genocide happened, they have commissions where people are working together to find reconciliation and healing in Rwanda, not only on an individual level, but on a countrywide level, so that people can be forgiven for what they did or didn't do. And we echo that message when it comes to abortion, that people can be forgiven for their involvement with it. And we exist not to condemn those people, but help them find hope and help them find healing. If anyone has questions, I encourage you to come up and talk to me or other volunteers we have here. I also encourage you to just turn around to the person next to you and ask them what they think and have a discussion going. So please seize this opportunity to ask people questions about abortion and really talk about what's happening. I will, since we've had some new people walk past, if there is anyone else who wants to ask a question over the microphone, I will certainly take any questions or comments. Otherwise, I'll be up here. Okay, thank you.